Welcome back to this week's edition of Freedom and Prosperity Radio. Even more of a rarity than a conservative in the college town of Charlottesville is a conservative from Fairfax County. But David Britt is on with us. David, you may have seen in the past week as one of the organizers of the drive-by protest during the reconvene session of the General Assembly, putting together and leading the Reopen Virginia movement. David, welcome to Freedom and Prosperity Radio. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, Joe. Thanks for having me.
So it looked like from all the angles I watched the reconvene session and the protest that everything went off without a hitch, although the TV cameras seemed to be waiting for that moment just like they always seem to. Were you aware that everyone was sort of just waiting to pounce on anything bad that happened?
Oh, absolutely. I spent my day with them, but because just of I wished I could have been driving around and blowing my train horns, but instead, as a spokesperson, I had to be available to those folks. And, whenever there was something that was kind of out of line that would make good TV, they were all over it, like the two folks that were dressed as medical personnel. It was like this flock, and one guy almost got hit running across the street.
Yeah.
But I was really, really happy because there were more media out of vehicles and on the sidewalk there than there were our people. And that's exactly what we wanted. We wanted our people in the cars doing their social distance thing to try and cut down on as much nonsense from the nonsense press as we could avoid.
Do you take it as a victory that by Monday, Governor Northam had been talking about setting a task force to start getting Virginia's businesses reopened?
Yeah, I do see that as a bit of a victory. That was one of the major things that I certainly was stressing and that we wanted to stress was that he needed to start talking to business people and not just medicos. Docs are wonderful, and we want them to be focused on the physical health of people. That's where they should be. If I go to a doc, I don't want him lecturing me on the economy or unemployment or anything like that. Mm-hmm. I want him to look at my body, and I want him to fix me. Governor Northam is a doc, and he was talking to all docs and academics, and that was giving him a very skewed viewpoint, and hopefully with him putting together some folks, he's going to get some business people in there, and they're going to start giving him the other side of things.
Well, it's an amazing place when Ralph Northam can seem to be on the conservative side of an argument because, with governors like Whitmer out there in Michigan, Ralph, by comparison, sometimes seems almost reasonable. When you watch her, double down, and then when queried, she redoubles down, almost like a spiteful schoolmarm, saying, "Okay, you question me, I'm going to make it worse." And I can't imagine how anyone does anything in Michigan right now, but that seems to be the attitude of the governor's mansion there. Ralph has, at points sounded like that lecturing, uncle that, is scolding us for going to the beach or hiking on a trail. It has been ludicrous, but we have seen Virginia's numbers backtrack. We've seen, more people getting out of the hospital, more people, successfully treated for COVID-19. So I think it's about time. But when we're all said and done with this, I heard a lot of rhetoric over the weekend, governors saying it's going to be 2 years until we're done with this. And I guess it depends on what your definition of done with something is. But when the dust settles, can we get to a place where the next General Assembly discusses how much control the government has over our businesses? Because it's been made an abstract argument on this program and others I host that Virginia has way too much King's Grant authority over the businesses, both locally and statewide. And I think this really, highlights, how strict Virginia is for business.
It definitely does. And in answer to your question, I don't believe this next session, when they convene in January 2021, will have much in the way of sympathetic discussion towards the way we would like to see it go. However, it is our obligation as Virginians to get out in November 2021 and reconfigure, shall we say, our House and our Senate.
There are a lot of people try to shout down the discussion of these sorts of things, saying, "Oh, don't politicize this. This is a health crisis." But when you look at the way the General Assembly acted towards shutting down businesses, acted towards trying to get them restarted, has acted towards voting. The ACLU and the League of Women Voters want them to eliminate the witness provisions in the absentee voting, those sorts of things. It is political because these elected officials are the ones that are voting to shut down our businesses.
Indeed, there is a political aspect, and from speaking with you before and from what's come out of the rally, I am totally opposed to us politicizing Reopen Virginia. That is our primary and sole purpose. I'm trying to stay as laser focused on that as absolutely possible because the politics are going to matter very little if we don't have an economy. And that's what's going on right now is they're killing the freaking economy. And you were talking about Ralph being better. Bear in mind, remember he in turn he did kind of double down with his statements about or with his prohibition on quote elective unquote surgeries. Yeah. We're losing up here in Nova, which is the hospital system up here, and it is gigantic. But even they just laid off 400 people because they can't afford to keep them. And as I say, they're monstrous. There are people who aren't getting cancer treatments in the Commonwealth. That's ludicrous. We had a lady that was at the rally with us, wonderful older lady, and she's waiting on brain surgery because they can't do it because it's classified as being elective.
That's where the crime in this is what they're calling elective, because they portray it in the media like it's cosmetic surgery, a nose job, a tummy tuck. When you're talking about chemotherapy treatments, radiation therapy treatments, and that kind of thing. And remember, we started this shutdown to keep the hospitals from being overwhelmed. And as you point out very clearly, we're laying off hospital staff now because they're so quiet.
Yep, exactly. And that's, if the purpose is, if the mission was to keep from overloading our hospitals, I hate to use the words, but mission accomplished. We could fly to an aircraft carrier, raise the banner, and this time it would be true.
Well, and sadly, again, you look at the longer game. We've already heard people talking about nationalizing our health system. Out of the first concern of it being overwhelmed, now I worry about the other way is going to happen, where by its economic collapse, people are going to have to government takeovers of the hospitals because they're going bankrupt.
Well, I wouldn't ever ascribe ulterior motives to anyone in the political realm.
Absolutely not.
One might very easily make the assertion that that's exactly what they want.
Yeah. Well, and that's what you're seeing is a movement, Andrew Cuomo leading it, of this nationalization movement, so that we can have nationwide responses to these kind of things. And sadly, there are a lot of people, out of the fear that have been driven into them by the media, saying, "Yeah, please just keep us safe from the viruses." Which I try to make the case, just like they've kept you safe from muggers and burglars, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And it's, if anything, we've seen how the national response has failed us. Mm-hmm. And it's the state-by-state, jurisdiction-by-jurisdiction, town-by-town responses that have been effective.
Absolutely. David,
and go ahead, man.
Well, Dad, I just wanted to read. People tuning in the middle. David Britt is is it President Chair Poobah for Reopen Virginia?
Spokesperson and one of the organizers. Everybody's describing you as far too much responsibility, far too much credit.
And one goes hand in hand. And it's a Facebook group right now. But are there other events planned besides the rally the other day?
Funny you should ask. We just finalized plans. We're going to be making our presence known, and we invite everyone to join us. Wednesdays, every Wednesday from 1 until 3. Basically the exact same thing. We're going to be circling the square down there, but we're going to be concentrating our horn blowing on one particular building, and that happens to be the building where Governor Northam has his briefings at 2 o'clock on Wednesday.
So if you're watching the briefings, if you hear horns honking during the briefings and you can't hear Dr. Forlano, who's Governor Northam's version of Tony Fauci, you'll know why.
Absolutely, and we invite you to join us down there. Interestingly enough, the man who was willing to the building, bears the name of the wonderful patriot who was willing to lay down his life for liberty. Give me liberty or give me death. The building is named after him, but I'm afraid that the current occupants are not holding to his beliefs and his
quite the opposite. They're using the fear of death to take your liberty.
Yeah, it's closer to it, I'm afraid.
Yeah. David, where can people find you on Facebook?
The Virginians for Constitutional, the original Reopen Virginia page has had to change its name.
Okay.
The jackbooted thugs of Facebook took down our Reopen Virginia rally event, but didn't do it until we were driving home. So that worked out beautifully. Yeah, there's a Reopen VA page out there, and I don't want to put you on speaker for me to check. It's the Virginians for Constitutional Authority 2020, I think is what it's called.
Okay,
that they renamed.
very good.
That's the page with the 30,000 members. And we'll be putting up an event page, possibly under the Restore, Resume, and Reestablish moniker, which is what we're kind of adopting now.
Oh.
Restore our liberties, resume our lives, and reestablish the rights of the people over their government.
Well, I appreciate it, David. Thank you again, and we'll have you back on as this goes on. But every Wednesday at 1, a little horn honking outside the governor's office. We appreciate it, sir, and keep up the great work.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
Coming up next on Freedom and Prosperity Radio, Steve Hayner from Bacon's Rebellion.